wait a minute, I'm not broken. That's a story that I'm telling myself. I'm not broken because Jesus is a healer and he's healed me. If Jesus is fixed and I'm emulating Christ and I'm following him, he's fixing me. It's like that dual state. I'm fixed and also I'm in process of still being fixed.
It's interesting you bring up, that parable of father and son, because I've always found that, especially since becoming a parent myself over the last 2 years, there is so much truth reflected in parenthood.
Oh, yeah.
And you've told several stories today. And I think that is the ultimate path to really understanding what our relationship is with Christ. And it's so interesting that we get to emulate and experience that very same relationship in real life. And as you said about the stories of apologizing to your children when you don't hold that standard that you set for them and for yourselves, there's so many powerful moments where like you get to experience this and you're like, oh, this has got to be on some level what it feels like, when I disobey God, or, when I go off the plan, or I don't hold that standard. We get to experience that from our own perspective as parents to our children. How do you think that influences both your relationship with Christ as well as your approach to day-to-day life? And what are some of the biggest lessons you've learned through that relationship with your children?
I never wanted to have kids. I
This is so great.
I never envisioned myself like being a mom. It was funny, like when I was, younger, like my teenage years, if young kids would try to interact with me, I'd be like, okay, well, all right. Like you need to go back to your mom now. But I was the youngest in my family. I wasn't a kid person. I had never, babysat or some of the stereotypical things. But as I reflect on it later, and realizing, what was that about, not wanting to have kids and all that. But I feel like through circumstances that were not of my choosing, I felt really damaged as a child and really traumatized. And so there was that, like you said, the story that you tell yourself. Well, because I was damaged as a child, if I have kids, I'm going to damage them. Like, I'm broken and I'm going to put that brokenness into a kid, and I don't want to do that. And we can think about that as, well, that's coming out of a good place, going back to good and bad. Well, that, but it's not coming out of a place of truth, because, there was a call there, there's a destiny there, and there's, something important to say that it's our job to bring forth the next generation that's going to be here. So I know for me, like when I had kids, it changed my life because it was just a tool that God used. And like when we had our first son and I saw him for the first time, it was just this experience of, oh my goodness, like I did not know that I could love someone this much. Like just that life-changing love that having a child brings into your life. It brings a life-changing love, but it brings a life-changing responsibility and ownership. And when we were going to leave the hospital, I'm like, okay, so we're just taking him home? Is a nurse going
Isn't
with
that a
us?
crazy feeling?
Is
You're
a
like,
nurse
this
or a
is
doctor
my human now?
going, yes. Oh, okay, like we're doing this. Yeah. So I would say for me, it was just a life-changing, mindset, but it brought about facing those things and facing that brokenness. Like what you were sharing about, coming out of cancer, that, the drinking and the anger, it wasn't until after that. Because when we're in something, when you're in the trauma, when you're fighting for your life, the adrenaline is here, the mindset is here. And if you're a kind of a person who's like, I'm in the battle, I'm overcoming this, I'm fighting this, you're not processing when you're in it. You're going to process it later, maybe years later. Like you're going to process that so many years later. But if you don't ever come to a situation that makes you process it, you may turn to drinking, you may turn to drugs, you may find unhealthy and ineffective ways to really not process something, but just to medicate it or to mask it. And when I had kids, it helped me because it brought me to such a point of facing that trauma and giving it to God and learning how to trust God and to say, wait a minute, I'm not broken. That's a story that I'm telling myself. I'm not broken because Jesus is a healer and he's healed me. if Jesus is fixed and I'm emulating Christ and I'm following him, he's fixing me. It's like that dual state. I'm fixed, and also I'm in process of still being fixed.
Yeah, it's, I think too, it's easy for people to make a decision that I'm going to be who I need or want to be based on who I'm in front of. And so whether it's who I am in front of my work colleagues versus who I am at home, who I am in front of my kids. But when we live in a relationship with God, it's easy to talk about the things like the goodness of God. The Bible says the goodness of God brings men to salvation. Taste and see that the Lord is good. But there's also the paradoxical part of it, is the Bible says the fear of the Lord is the beginning of wisdom. It's the beginning of wisdom. It says that the day of the Lord is a great and terrible day. And so there's a weightiness to the reality of that I, at times in my life, will not be in front of my wife. There's times in my life I won't be in front of my kids. I'll be in front of other people or be in front of nobody. But I am ever before the Lord.
Yeah.
And that sobering reality changes if we really give to it of I do not have the ability to change who I am. I have to make a decision to deal with who I am so that I'm not manipulating myself to be this person, that person. Don't get me wrong. There's a difference between, because I'm with, this group of people, I'm making sure that I'm presenting myself in a way that makes them feel more comfortable, obviously, versus the idea of I'm this person here, that person here, this person here. And living that truth in front of your children, that who they see at home is who they see at church, is who they see at the grocery store, is who they see when they're both on the mountain, excited about this, excited about that, and when they see us in the valley, dealing with difficulty, dealing with hardship. And so it doesn't mean that they don't see us break down. It doesn't mean that they haven't seen us cry. It doesn't mean that they haven't seen us face hardship head on, but that there's a consistent line of this is who we are. Like when everything's stripped away, like the training, the reading coaching, our careers, the things that we love, our passions, it's that we are sons and daughters of God, that all of the issues of life flow from that truth. And as a result, we don't have to change who we are based on who we're around. It's just us being us. And I think that can be really powerful, especially, I believe, for kids, because, man, school is such a weird bubble. All of our kids now are in school. And, for me, school was mostly a bad experience. I was picked on when I was really, really young. I was short. I was super socially awkward, dealt with severe social anxiety. And I dreaded school. And in my mind, I had to adjust who I was based on who I was around. And as adults, it's easy. Everyone, regardless of your age, we learn, it's like a survival skill that we try to survive life by becoming this person and that person. When in reality, when we come into a relationship with God, God's like, hey, I'm going to strip that stuff away and we're going to talk about who you are. And I'm not abandoning you. I'm coming with you to say, now let's start working on chipping away at these areas of your life that you've not addressed. And what's beautiful is if we're really honest in front of our kids, they see that. They see those, for us, our kids were born after we had been following, Jesus for a long time. And so we're still changing. We will be changing in our character until the day we leave this earth. But, they didn't experience some of the craziness that both of us experienced in our households. I was, going and playing music out in the bars when I was 15 years old, running around like crazy. She grew up in a household that there was a lot of partying going on. And our kids have never known that. They've only, and we let them know, listen, guys, a lot of your friends don't have what you guys have. And keep in mind, we take no credit for it, because if it was not for God, we would not have that peace in our home. And so we really make a point to say, guys, listen, you don't realize what you have, because what you have right now, we did not have growing up. And I think those authentic conversations and them seeing we strive to be who we are regardless of who we're around. They don't see the, dad when he's at church or mom when she's at church, and then it's someone different at home. Because there's a lot of people I talk to, they experience the exact opposite. And that's where it gets into, a lot of people that talk about, well, I don't go to church because it's full of hypocrites, or, I had this friend that was a Christian, they did this, and that person that said they were a Christian, they did this. I, at the end of the day, cannot judge if someone actually knows Jesus, because the Bible says that man sees the outward appearance, but God is the only one that sees the heart. And at the end of the day, he's the one that's going to be sitting on the judgment seat. But if we are really striving to follow Jesus, we have to be careful to look at, it would be like if you guys brought on somebody else with your organization. They've got your shirt, they're representing you, but the way that they behave is totally contrary to your mission, your character, your statement. And so let's say someone had an interaction with this person and said, man, Matt and Austin, I don't want anything to do with them because I interacted with such and such and they were doing this, doing that. That's not who you guys are. They are a misrepresentation. And what we have a lot is we have a lot of people that hit their time card because they went to church. Their religious affiliation is Christianity, but they no more know Jesus than the man that's out in the bar or the drug addict that's out in the street. And they are misrepresenting who Jesus is. Jesus didn't call us to be perfect, but he called us to pursue him. And in that's what we strive for our kids to see, with our lives at home and running around.